My dear children, my beautiful friends, as a retiree who has spent years in the markets, invested in dozens of countries, and now sits in my garden sharing everything I know with you, let me tell you, money doesn't work the way you think it does. I'm going to tell you about two apartments. Same city, same neighborhood, two different rents close to each other. The first apartment belongs to someone earning $95,000 a year. When you walk in, you see a 75-inch television mounted on the wall and a lavish leather sectional sofa. Kitchen appliances, most still sitting in their original boxes. Clothes overflowing from the closet, many with tags still attached. A storage room full of items that haven't been touched in years. Every time this person checks their bank account, their stomach tightens. To miss 2 paychecks and they're on the edge of bankruptcy. The second apartment belongs to someone earning $52,000 a year. When you walk in, the first thing you feel is space. A modest sofa, a reasonably sized television, only the kitchen tools that actually get used, a closet with clothes that get worn, and an actual guest bedroom. This person checks their bank account with calm confidence. They have 18 months of savings and invest 20% of every paycheck. Same neighborhood. The person earning almost half as much has nearly 10 times the financial security. My dear children, this is not a story about income. It's the story of the hidden relationship between stuff and money. I understood this relationship decades ago and built my wealth on this understanding. Now let's go through the simple money rules that separate people who always have money from those who never do. These aren't rules of deprivation, they're rules of seeing the true cost. First and foremost, know this. Everything you own costs you money twice. The first cost is obvious. It's the number on the receipt. But there's a second cost that most people completely ignore, and it's often larger than the first. This second cost includes storage, maintenance, mental energy, and opportunity cost. Hat fitness equipment you bought takes up space in your home. In urban areas at $30 to $50 per square foot annually. The implicit rent for this equipment, taking up roughly 20 square feet, is $600 to $1,000 per year. And most likely, it always has clothes hanging on it. The maintenance and repair cost is on top of that. That boat sitting in your yard needs winterization, cleaning, insurance, registration, and occasional repairs. The industry rule says annual maintenance costs about 10% of the boat's value. A $30,000 boat costs $3,000 per year just to own, even if you never take it on the water. And then there's the mental energy cost, my dear children. Everything you own constantly occupies a small slice of your attention. It needs to be cleaned, organized, maintained, insured, worried about, and eventually disposed of. Researchers found that visual clutter raises cortisol levels and reduces the brain's ability to focus. Your stuff is stressing you out without you knowing it. Finally, there is opportunity cost, and this one saddens me the most. Every dollar tied up in possessions is a dollar not flowing into investments. That $15,000 home gym setup could have been an investment fund, growing to $50,000 or more in 15 years. You didn't just build a home gym, you chose a home gym instead of your future financial freedom. When you add up all these hidden costs, owning many items costs more than buying them. The purchase price is just the entry fee, and the ongoing costs continue for as long as you possess the item. Minimalists understand this intuitively, not because they hate nice things, but because they've calculated the true cost and decided most things aren't worth it. And this brings us to the first rule. Before any purchase, calculate the cost per use. And before buying anything, estimate how many times you'll realistically use it. Divide the total cost by that number to find the cost per use. This is the only honest measure of value. A $200 jacket worn twice costs $100 per wear. A $400 jacket worn 200 times costs $2 per wear. The expensive-looking jacket is actually far cheaper. This calculation immediately destroys most impulse purchases. A $300 kitchen gadget used twice a year costs $150 per use in the first year. That's an outrageously expensive way to accomplish whatever task it performs. On the other hand, a $30 tool used weekly costs less than 60 cents per use in the first year. The math cuts through marketing, emotion, and social pressure, and it clearly reveals the difference between what truly makes sense and what merely seems appealing in the moment. Rule 2. Apply the replacement test to everything you own. Walk through your home and look at each item. Ask yourself this simple question: if this item disappeared today, would I go spend money to replace it? Be honest with yourself. Would you really go buy another fondue pot? The bread maker collecting dust in the corner of the cabinet? Those clothes you haven't worn in 18 months? For most items, the honest answer will be no. These things entered your life through inertia. Impulse buys, gifts you felt obligated to keep, or remnants of past hobbies and phases you've moved beyond. These items have negative value. They require space, mental energy, and maintenance while providing no benefit in return. Every hour spent organizing, or cleaning around, or thinking about items that fail the replacement test is an hour stolen from what truly matters. Minimalists ruthlessly eliminate items that fail this test. They sell what has value, donate what someone else could use, and discard what serves nobody. The process feels uncomfortable at first, but once complete, you feel liberated. The psychological weight of owning things you don't want or need is enormous. Removing that weight creates mental space that's hard to describe, but immediately felt. Rooms feel larger, decisions feel simpler, cleaning takes half the time, and you know where everything is because everything remaining has a purpose. Rule 3. Never upgrade out of boredom. And I constantly see this pattern in people who earn well but have nothing saved. They replace perfectly functional items simply because they're bored with them or newer models exist. The television works perfectly, but the new model has slightly better contrast. The phone operates flawlessly, but the new release has a marginally improved camera. The car runs reliably, but the New Year's model has updated styling. The furniture serves its purpose, but they've grown tired of looking at it. These upgrades feel like improvements. In reality, they are the destruction of wealth disguised as progress. Minimalists follow a strict policy: never replace something that functions properly. Boredom is not failure. Desire for novelty is not failure. The existence of newer alternatives is not failure. Actual mechanical breakdown or genuine inability to perform required tasks is failure. Everything else is marketing, trying to convince you to solve problems you don't have. This policy saves enormous sums of money over a lifetime. The average American replaces their phone every 2 to 3 years, often while the previous phone still works perfectly. Over 30 years, this habit costs between $30,000 and $50,000 in unnecessary purchases. Applied across all categories where upgrade culture operates, the lifetime waste easily exceeds $200,000. Rule 4. Create friction for spending and ease for saving. Human behavior always follows the path of least resistance. Minimalists design their environment to make the right choice the easy choice. Spending friction means delete stored credit card numbers from online retailers. I require a 24-hour waiting period before any non-essential purchase. Delete shopping apps from your phone, unsubscribe from promotional emails, and avoid stores unless you have a specific intended purchase. Saving ease means set up automatic transfers to investment accounts on payday. Keep only small amounts in easily accessible accounts. Make investment contributions happen before you see the money, and treat savings as a fixed expense rather than an afterthought. These structural changes matter more than willpower. Willpower depletes throughout the day. Environment is constant. Minimalists don't trust themselves to consistently make good decisions. They design systems that make good decisions automatic. The 24-hour waiting rule alone eliminates roughly 70% of impulse purchases, and most desires for objects fade within a day if not acted upon immediately. Rule 5. Count your possessions regularly. This sounds obsessive at first, but actually doing it creates awareness. Pick a category and count how many items you own in that category. Write it down. I've seen for years the expression in the eyes of those who have never objectively examined their consumption patterns. The numbers often shock people. How many shirts do you own? Most people guess low and discover they have 3 to 4 times more than they estimated. How many kitchen gadgets? How many pairs of shoes? How many items in your junk drawer? How many books you'll never open or read again? The count itself changes behavior. Once you know you own 47 shirts, buying another feels different. You're not adding a shirt, you're bringing your collection to 48. The absurdity becomes visible. Minimalists track key categories over time and set maximum thresholds, perhaps 30 items of clothing total, perhaps 15 books at any given time, perhaps a one-in, one-out policy where any new purchase requires removing something existing. These constraints prevent lifestyle creep. Without intentional limits, possessions expand to fill available space. With limits, each addition requires a conscious decision about what it's replacing, and that friction alone dramatically reduces acquisition. Rule 6. Rent or borrow before you buy. Most items people purchase get used intensively for a short period, and then rarely touched. The excitement of newness fades, initial enthusiasm decreases, and the item joins the collection of things owned but seldom touched. Minimalists test this pattern by renting or borrowing before committing to ownership. Want to try camping? Rent equipment for the first few trips. Want to explore woodworking? Borrow tools from a friend or use a makerspace. Want a kayak? Rent several times before purchasing. This approach accomplishes two things. First, it reveals whether the enthusiasm is genuine or temporary. Many interests fade after the initial exploration. Better to discover this while renting than after purchasing equipment that will collect dust forever. Second, it clarifies exactly what you need. First-time campers often buy too much or the wrong things. Renting lets you learn before committing. The buy-first mentality costs people enormously over their lifetimes. Closets and garages across America are full of dusty remnants of abandoned hobbies. Ski equipment bought when they thought they'd ski regularly. Photography gear bought when they imagined becoming serious photographers. Music equipment from bands that played 2 shows. Minimalists avoid becoming museums of past enthusiasm. They test interests before investing, maintaining the flexibility to explore without the burden of ownership. Rule 7. Understand the lifestyle multiplier effect. Every possession you own connects to other possessions. A boat requires a trailer, a hitch-equipped vehicle, storage fees, maintenance supplies, safety equipment, and appropriate clothing. A purchase that seems singular actually triggers a cascade of supporting purchases. This is the lifestyle multiplier. Major purchases multiply into ecosystems of related expenses. The true cost is never just the item itself. Watch how this plays out with common purchases. A home gym requires flooring, mirrors, storage solutions, ventilation considerations, and often renovation to make the space suitable. A pool requires chemical supplies, cleaning equipment, covers, furniture, maintenance tools, and often landscaping. A motorcycle includes gear, storage, maintenance equipment, and often a truck or trailer for transportation to riding locations. Minimalists calculate the full ecosystem cost before any major purchase. They see through the multiplier that a $5,000 purchase might actually represent $8,000 or $12,000 when all multiplier expenses are included. This full accounting often transforms what seemed like a reasonable purchase into something clearly excessive. The multiplier effect also works in reverse. Eliminating one major possession often eliminates an entire category of related expenses. Selling the boat ends storage fees, insurance, registration, maintenance, and towing costs. The savings extend far beyond the item's value. Rule 8. Define enough before you start earning. My dear children, there's something that constantly traps high earners. They never define what enough looks like. So they keep purchasing more without ever arriving at satisfaction. Their income increases, so does their lifestyle. The new lifestyle becomes normal, and they need another income increase to feel progress. This cycle continues indefinitely. Or people earning $300,000 feel just as financially stressed as those earning $80,000 because their expectations and expenses expanded with their income. Minimalists break this cycle by defining enough before they start earning. They decide in advance what kind of home is sufficient, what car meets their needs, what level of material comfort constitutes genuine satisfaction. Then they earn toward that target instead of constantly moving the goalpost. Defining enough creates a finish line. Without it, you're running an endless race where income growth always outpaces lifestyle expansion. Someone who defines enough at $60,000 of annual spending and then starts earning $150,000 builds wealth at an extraordinary rate. The $90,000 gap between income and enough flows directly to financial freedom. Meanwhile, And someone earning the same $150,000 but constantly redefining enough upward might save almost nothing. Rule 9. Measure wealth by optionality, not accumulation. The conventional view measures wealth by what you have: houses, cars, possessions, visible markers of success. Minimalists measure wealth differently. Can you leave a job that's destroying your mental health? Can you take 6 months off to handle a family emergency? Can you move to a new city for a relationship? Can you start a business without guaranteed income? Can you retire before 65? Can you say no to opportunities that pay well but compromise your values? These options represent true wealth and are only available to people who've built substantial margin between their income and expenses. The person earning $200,000 but spending $195,000 has almost no optionality. They're chained to their income requirement. The person earning $80,000 but spending $45,000 has extraordinary optionality. They can absorb disruptions, take risks, and make choices based on preference rather than financial necessity. Minimalists understand that optionality requires liquid resources more than physical possessions. Money tied up in a car you don't need can't buy your freedom when you need it. Home equity locked in excess house can't fund a career transition or an extended sabbatical. This perspective transforms spending decisions. Each purchase is a trade between optionality and possession. Is this item worth reducing your ability to make free choices about your life? Sometimes yes, often no. Rule 10. Practice cyclical decluttering rather than annual purging. Most people who attempt minimalism do a massive purge and feel great for a few weeks and then gradually accumulate back to their starting point. The purge feels productive. The gradual reaccumulation goes unnoticed. Within 2 years, they're right back where they started. Minimalists prevent this pattern through cyclical decluttering, weekly glances at incoming items, monthly evaluation of one category, quarterly assessment of overall accumulation trends, small regular reviews instead of massive annual purges. This cyclical approach catches accumulation early before it rebuilds to overwhelming levels. Removing 3 items per week is manageable and sustainable. Removing 300 items once per year feels overwhelming and often gets postponed indefinitely. The cyclical approach also builds awareness. When you regularly evaluate your possessions, you see which categories tend to grow. You identify which emotional states trigger acquisition. You recognize which marketing tactics work on you specifically. This awareness enables prevention rather than just treatment. My dear children, let me now share a practical implementation you can start today. This week, walk through your home with the replacement test in mind. Identify 10 items you would not replace if they disappeared. Sell, donate, or discard those items. Notice how it feels to remove things you don't actually want. This month, apply the 24-hour rule for all non-essential purchases. Track how many purchase desires survive the waiting period versus how many evaporate. The data will reveal how much of your spending is impulsive rather than intentional. This quarter, count your possessions in 3 categories that tend to accumulate for most people. Clothing, kitchen items, and media or entertainment are useful starting points. Set a maximum threshold for each category based on what you actually use. This year, define what enough looks like across major spending categories. What home is sufficient? What transportation is adequate? What wardrobe meets your genuine needs? Write these definitions down and refer to them when the temptation to exceed your own standards arises. The financial transformation from these practices compounds over time. Someone who applies these rules consistently for 5 years accumulates substantially less while saving substantially more. The gap between their lifestyle and their income creates wealth that can't be built any other way. My dear children, my beautiful friends, let me tell you what nobody says about minimalism and money. This relationship is bidirectional. Owning less creates more money, but having more money also makes owning less feel natural. When your savings account is robust and your investments are growing, the psychological needs driving most consumption, the need for security and status, get satisfied through financial strength rather than physical possessions. You don't need stuff to feel successful because your bank account already tells the story you want to hear. People trapped in consumption cycles often can't explain why they buy so much. The truth is that spending temporarily fills an emotional void created by financial insecurity. Address the insecurity with real financial strength, and the compulsion to spend often dissolves on its own. This creates a virtuous cycle. Less spending leads to more saving. More saving creates security. As security reduces the emotional drive to spend, reduced spending accelerates saving further. Each turn of the cycle reinforces the next. The opposite cycle is equally powerful but destructive. Spending everything creates insecurity. Insecurity drives more spending as temporary emotional relief. More spending deepens insecurity, and the cycle continues until some external force forces a breaking point. The choice between these two cycles determines financial trajectory more than income ever could. High earners trapped in the destructive cycle build nothing. Modest earners riding the virtuous cycle build everything. The minimalist rules I've described aren't about suffering or deprivation. They're about recognizing that most consumption doesn't actually improve life satisfaction. Research consistently shows that beyond a baseline of security and comfort, additional purchases contribute minimally to well-being. Yet most people spend as if happiness scales linearly with spending. Minimalists align their behavior with this research. They spend enough to be comfortable, then redirect the excess toward freedom rather than accumulation. They end up with less stuff but a higher quality of life. The apartment I described at the beginning, the one belonging to someone earning $52,000 with 18 months of savings, belongs to someone applying these rules consistently. They didn't get there through exceptional income. They got there through exceptional clarity about what actually matters. The other apartment, the one belonging to someone earning $95,000 who is 2 paychecks from crisis, belongs to someone who never questioned the assumption that more stuff equals a better life. Both lifestyles are available to you regardless of what you currently earn. The choice is simply between these two. Do you want to own your possessions, or are you comfortable with your possessions owning you? The math and the research strongly favor the first option, and so does the peace of mind it brings.